talk about Mamdani's inauguration for a few minutes. I'm going to bring on our expert, David Birdsell, who's going to be joining us, and we're going to discuss the impact of this inauguration happening at midnight tomorrow, right after the bell drops. And the public ceremonies will be following that. David, thank you so much for joining me.
Pleasure to be here.
So, what should New Yorkers be watching for in the first 100 days after Mamdani is inaugurated tomorrow?
Well, the first thing that I would look for is the cascade of appointments to city commissioner level positions throughout his government. He's got to start governing on day one. He's already done a good job of fleshing out his roster of deputy mayors, and people will serve in senior advisory roles in communications and legal and chief of staff sorts of positions. But there are another 40 or so city agencies that have yet to be staffed, and the identity of those people is going to speak volumes to what he's able to do. Looking just at the appointments that he's made so far, he's really steered a fairly pragmatic path. He's taken some people from his background in the DSA, and those are people, that is the Democratic Socialists of America, and that is, for example, the background of his chief of staff and his legal advisors. But he's also taking people who have experience in national level government and people who have been in prior New York City administrations. And that suggests a willingness to try to deal with the political complexities that he'll face right from day one.
And do you think his inauguration marks a moment or the beginning of a longer term shift in New York City politics?
That's very much to be seen. He put together a winning coalition in this campaign, both in the primary and in the general, that hadn't been put together before. This is a new group and a lot of first-time voters among them. Whether they will be sufficiently energized or sustain that level of energy that brought them to the polls in November when they see what he's actually able to do. The mayor still talks about, or the mayor-elect, I should say, we could talk about mayor on Friday morning, but the mayor-elect has articulated some very ambitious goals, and they're very popular. The problem is they cost a lot of money. And he's talking about right now, other than his tax the rich strategies, which he can't do on his own. The governor has to do that with the cooperation of the state legislature. You can't do it through the city council and the mayor, even if they saw things the same way. And that's going to be very hard to do, to near impossible in the midst of a campaign season for everybody at the state level, as it was for everybody at the city level this last November. So one of the major questions is, what can be done without raising taxes? What can be done redirecting money, finding alternative sources of revenue, because that's going to be a much more likely predicate for a somewhat more modest set of goals. And then let's see what the mayor does. Does he say, the most important thing to me is free buses, if that's it, and then all of the energy goes there? Or is it going to be the most important thing is to make sure that we've cleared regulatory hurdles to make it possible to build the 300 to 500 units of housing that would take to make the city more affordable? I'm going to be looking for that kind of thing, and I think most of the viewers would find that the most interesting place to pay attention over the course of these next three and a half months.
Right, and knowing these things and the potential financial hurdles and stuff, I mean, what would count, in your opinion, as an early win for Mamdani?
If he's able to make significant progress toward any of these goals, and let's stipulate, if we talk about building housing doesn't start in 100 days. But you could get, conceivably, very tall task, but you could get changes to zoning regulations. You could get the people who participate in the current extremely complex process called ULURP to agree to come together on certain signature products that 3, 4, 5 years down the road would build some fraction of those 300 to 500,000 housing units. You could make buses cheaper for people who can show a need based on low income or whatever the criteria are. So if it steps toward these goals, he probably gets to notch something that looks a little bit like a victory. But it's got to be concrete, and people have to feel it fast, because skepticism about political inaction is what drove him into office, and it will drive him out of it if he's perceived to suffer from the same problems.
Right, and so his inauguration tomorrow being held at midnight in a subway station, not at City Hall. What do you think is the method behind that decision of his, if you had to guess?
Well, he's given us a rationale. I mean, first of all, and it's not uncommon for mayors to have a quiet signing, a quiet oath of office ceremony, because you don't want to leave the city without a mayor even for 5 minutes. So you've really got to hit that right at the stroke of midnight. But by doing this in the first subway station that was built in the system, the station under City Hall, for security reasons, it's been closed for decades. But it's a beautiful place. Really designed in the highest Beaux-Arts fashion at the beginning of the century. And he says that that is indicative of his commitment to reclaiming a New York when we could think about things that were both beautiful and functional and serve the people. So that's what he's calling the symbolism of this event. Of course, at 1 o'clock the next day, there's the public ceremony, and he will go through another swearing in, although, of course, he will already at that point officially be mayor of the city.
Well, wow, that's happening in just about a little more than 24 hours from right now. But in terms of his inauguration and, of course, his election, I know just a couple months ago we talked a lot with you about his election and what that could look like for New York City. But what does his inauguration and all of this say about what New York City voters are hungry for right now?
Well, one thing that it'll be interesting to look at for tomorrow's inauguration is who's on stage, who wants to be seen with this mayor, who wants to be known as part of this movement. If he's able to draw a broad slice of elected New York, and I'm thinking not just of the city, but of Albany as well, because it's so clear that he's going to need Albany to do a lot of what he wants to get done. That's another piece, small piece at least, of the symbolism of having the Attorney General, Letitia James, swear him in at midnight. His notion of coordinated activity with Albany and statewide political authorities. It was behind his choice as first deputy mayor of Dean Foulahan, who used to be the budget director for the state of New York. So, I'm going to be looking for some of that pageantry. The inauguration itself isn't necessarily so important, except for the themes that the mayor articulates in the speech. And those speeches tend in New York not to be focal points that really lay out a roadmap for administrations. I think we may see a difference tomorrow where he talks about the envelope and the expectations and tries to shape people's understanding of what he believes he can do over these next 100 days.
And before I let you go, David, what kind of governing philosophy is Mamdani signaling as he officially takes office?
Ambitious and pragmatic. I can think we talked a little just a few minutes ago about the quality of his appointments and the fact that he's drawing in people who have deep experience in government, which he does not, right? So he's balancing some of his shortcomings with people who really know how to get things done. But he's not dropping that large arc of ambition, the ability to create new housing, the ability to create universal child care, the ability to make transportation free, those kinds of things. And I think that's very important. And look too at his willingness to work with none other than President Trump, who returned the favor by offering him praise in the Oval Office itself. So I think pragmatic and ambitious is right now what we're seeing, and we'll see exactly how that turns out on the ground after Thursday.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for joining us. You are a beloved guest here on Fox 5, and we always appreciate your insight. Big day tomorrow in the New York City political world as Mamdani gets elected. When we come back from the break, we will have more on the weather before the New Year's Eve celebrations and, of course, ahead of Mamdani's inauguration.